old man. There was a police sergeant in charge. There was ambulance drivers, no female ones. There were firemen, but they were firemen. There were even religious denominations, people, but there were no women among them. There were, and last of all, this sea change spread to the services of the country, and women, men were allowed into all the armed services to serve together. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks very much, Frank. My role is the sort of the PowerPoint, but it's sort of the questioning PowerPoint here. And so what we're probably going to try and do now is just pick below some of this story and just actually sort of and see if some of it's more myth than reality. So where we're going to start? We're going to start. So Frank actually had quite a few prominent roles as a counsellor and also a senior manager. And at different stages, he had many secretaries. So we just want to try and pick below that role and actually, because it's one of those classic roles where where it's sort of given a certain sort of status, but we actually want to know whether our stereotype of it was actually as real. So did you have any secretaries, Frank, that you can remember that?
Yes, I always had secretaries, but they were very, very smart, and I think a lot of them were smarter than the bosses they were serving. But this was how secretaries worked. It was in the days still of shorthand and typists. It's far different. I don't want you to confuse it with the offices in this digital age. Yes, but they were smart people. I decided I was elected to, given the position, to work as the fire chief and reorganise the Shire of Tweed and Byron, and I run into a lot of problems about secretaries, but I'll have to answer that a little bit further down the track. Thank you, Mel.
So just getting into that role of the secretary, so in terms of what you were actually able to achieve, without that assistance, how much of what you could achieve do you think would have been possible without that support?
I don't think I would have achieved a great deal because you rely completely on secretaries, especially in the past, more so than today, I think. But all I would have had was vocal contact with the people, which was very good, the new folk coming. I got along well with them both in Tweedshire and Byron, as probably some of you here know, because the new people who were here, they wanted to live in freedom was first what they were looking for, and they expressed their freedom by taking off their clothes was one way. And then I was called from Byron Bay once to say what I was going to do about people walking down the road. I think they had friends in the ABC at that time, and they'd joined a lot of the new folk. And I thought that it would have to solve its own problem. I thought there was no way I could I could control this, so I didn't attempt to.
Just drifting off a little bit of point there. That's quite okay. I think when we're talking about secretaries, but that's quite okay. I think it was more amusing. Probably one of the ones that interests me most in some ways is that there were actually a couple of traditional roles that women were absolutely dominant in. And just before we came on, you actually sort of mentioned that sort of the Mother Superior and the nunnery was often one of them, but the other one that you mentioned earlier was the matron. And it'd be nice to have a little bit more sense of actually how the woman in that position exercised their power and how that actually related to everybody around them.
Yes, when you did have a position where the woman was in power, unfortunately, I didn't get along too well with the matron of the hospital. I was like most of the nurses in days gone by because she reigned supreme over all. They would have to do their hair her way and other things. Some of them told me that this is how it was. Maybe the matron was right, maybe she wasn't. I'm not in a position to say, but it was one thing where the women have always been in control, which is nursing, back to Florence Nightingale.
So just on that, you mentioned when you had one of your children and an experience of going to the hospital, and how that exercise, how that.
Well, what it was, you couldn't take any children into the hospital at all, and if you'd driven a long way to a hospital and you happened to arrive there at time for the wife to feed the baby, no men were allowed in the hospital. It was just shut down. You would have to go and sit down and wait for the little bit of the visiting hours to pass so you could visit your wife. Thank you, Mel.
Right. So another one which often around here, and we sort of started with that idea that you couldn't find photos of women in the workforce, but you've mentioned to me that in terms of the agricultural industries, that women generally were incredibly important in terms of a large proportion of the workforce. Can you talk about some of those traditional industries around here and how, and just give us some sense of actually how important the women were?
Yes, well, my mother was very important, I'd say. She had 13 kids. I was in the middle of them. But she didn't only, because you can't have 13 all at once, so most of them, some of them had grown up to help look after the younger ones, which was the case in most of the large families. But my mother, she ran the post office as well. She had that. And if she didn't have enough, she took in the school teacher from the top school as a boarder. And then 3 of the boys went off into the army, so that cut them down a bit, and one was killed. And then the girls, being fairly religious, they joined up into religious orders. And in the end, I was the only one at home.
So just taking that back a little bit. So your mother was a traditional at home mother. So she didn't actually go out to work, but she actually had, so she actually ran a house with 13 children, and she was also in charge of the post office, the telephone exchange, so that was a fairly.
Yes, it was a very time-consuming thing. See, before the telephones were switched to automatic, there was the manual exchanges were in the valleys like Maynarm, and it was well populated. So the post office progressed when I was only at home to me. I'd run the switchboard of the night and handle that. I could do it. And
You had a particular name, didn't you?
yes, but I don't know whether you're old enough, you folk, to know, to listen to it. Yes, there was call boys of the night, but they were, in those days, the interpretation wasn't the same as today.
Just to take a quick diversion, you also, when you were 17, you actually used the phone for slightly nefarious purposes, I gather.
Oh, yes, you could use it for different things. It was because you had direct lines. Those times, any of you who were telephonists in the early days, you would know you could listen to the radio stations, you'd have lines. But there was one line which people used it for. It was before SP betting was legalised, you might say. And there were a lot of calls and things without incriminating anybody, including myself, that you knew what racehorses were being betted on and everything else. There was an opportunity there to utilise your position. So I'm not saying it happened, but this is how life changes, and things were quite different. Maynarm has always been known for change. It's had change all the time through history, and therefore it was an ideal location for people to keep on coming there and using telephones before the mobile phone. Thanks, Mark.
So we might before we finish up, we might just go back and actually have a bit more of a look at that first change of the political order. You know, so in 1967, I think you said the first women were. Oh no, so you were elected in 1967. So the first women were elected in the early 1970s. Now, what changed did those women? Can you remember their names?
Oh yes, yes, I know their names. There was the first two women to come on to Byron Shire were Patricia Brown and Margaret Bisson, the two from Bangalow. Margaret was the pharmacist's wife, and Patricia had a property in Bangalow.
And would you say they changed? Did you say the running of the council changed much with them?
Well, the running of it did. There was peace and harmony. The first tour I gave them as to what the Shire was like was to take them to the top end of Maynarm, and so they would know what's going on. That's all.
Right. So just the fact